I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the F5 Recovery Radio. This is your host, Juan Pretty Ricky. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Adam Martin, Kirsten Huvenen. We're super thankful that you continue to support our show and watch and talk about all things recovery. So, of course, want to thank our sponsors, the F5 Project, the Ridge Treatment and Reentry Center, and, of course, our brand new sponsor, GoAwayBear.com. We're really looking forward to talking about a great show. We're going to be talking about pride and recovery today. So I hope you enjoy what we have to share and maybe learn something. So what's up, y'all? How you feeling?
Rawr. GoAwayBear.com.
Keep the atoms off your podcast.
You're the new spokesman, yeah.
I did a snippet on it. I gotta get that cut so I can get it.
Rawr.
GoAwayBear.com. Rawr.
Or rar.
Dude, so this is the first episode since Christmas break.
Yep.
So how was the holidays?
The holidays were solid. It was really, really good. I got to spend it in California with my family.
Oh,
So
rough. Yeah.
Yeah, it was terrible. But just
Any
good
ice
time.
storms there?
No
Oh,
ice storms.
sure.
It did rain. It rained one day, it pulls. I don't know if you guys ever heard the song "It Never Rains in Southern California." It actually does rain in Southern California. Yeah. So but it wasn't like it lasted. Like it was like a really, really big downpour for I don't know 5-6 hours, and then cleared up. And
5-6 hours.
Of just like consistent rain. It was weird.
Like thick rain.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Huh.
I like rainy days.
Yeah, but it's weird because I think of all of my we usually try to go every Christmas. I've been going, I don't know, since I moved to North Dakota. It's never rained when I've gone. This is like the first year in 10 years, 12 years. No, yeah, 12 or 13 years it's rained on this specific trip, which is kind of crazy. Yeah,
How'd the baby handle the flight? All that jazz?
did great. He did really. I mean, he's he just travels really well.
Yeah,
Which has
that's
been
good.
really, really great because we've put him in car seats and just driving, and then he had his first flight was when he was 6 months. Did not handle that one well, but this one just crushed
What
it.
did he do on the flight?
He cried because we couldn't get his bottle fast enough.
Oh, you didn't give him an iPad?
You've cried for the same reason.
Because I can't have a bottle? Yeah.
Couldn't get your bottle fast enough.
I was like, Jameson.
It was my sippy tap. Yeah,
How old is he?
He will be a year old on Sunday.
He did he's
No
a year
way.
old, and he did how long of a flight?
He did 2.5 hours. So we flew Fargo to Denver, then Denver to LA. So it's
We're
2
cutting
hours.
all this shit out.
I just wondered if he cried or not.
I
Yeah.
get so much anxiety flying with kids.
Really?
I don't know, because I'll see, I've been on a lot of flights, so
Right.
it'll be on the flight and I'll be by myself, and then all of a sudden this toddler will just lose his shit. Man, I don't feel I don't feel bad for. I mean, I feel bad for the parent, but I can just. The intensity of the anxiety of kids, shut the hell up.
I know.
There's so many
Please.
people on this flight. Everyone's judging me. So because of all those
Right.
those incidents with babies and dogs crying the whole time, I'm just I'm never bringing my kids. But in March or February somewhere
Yeah, you guys are going down
last
south,
year,
right?
went to Florida,
Yeah.
took all the kids. And I was sweating bullets with baby. I was but gave her the iPad and she was quiet pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
It was a long flight. It was from North Dakota to Florida.
That's good.
Wow.
Family vacations are so much work.
Yeah.
They're
More
not
work than
vacation.
work.
I know.
Oh.
I know. Well, good. You got to see your family.
It was great.
Do you do anything traditional? Any traditions in your family for Christmas?
You guys play craps?
No.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I think of you when I'm playing games. Oh my God.
No, we don't really have usually most of the time so my mom usually does we have a lot more New Year's Day traditions, and so she'll just make huge feast of seafood. So we had lobster, crabs, scallops, salmon, and just every seafood you can imagine, just way too much food, and then everyone comes over and watches the
cool.
rose. Because my dad, we usually work the Rose Parade. He'll have some sort of assignment, so we're always trying to watch him on TV to see if he's gets on TV somehow, or
That's cool. Make a scene. You'll get on TV.
So then everybody like just comes over and just has a good time. So instead of my mom hosting, we did it all with my sisters. And it was a blast. Like, it was just great. Kids are just running, like, Ricky's just crawling around, and his cousin Thierry is 3, or he will be 4. So he was just, just kind of just fun just to see the kids like
Oh, it's fun when they're
interact
little.
with each other,
Yeah.
because they never get like to hang out, So I get to see them like, all right, how's this gonna go? Yeah, just fine. Just boys playing with toys. So
Yeah.
it was great.
Yeah,
Do they
boys
have,
are
like,
easy.
casinos and stuff in California?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a big trigger for you to go home?
Sometimes. And it's like, it was funny because right along on the 5 freeway, there's like City of Commerce. That's like one of our, like, that's like the closest casino. And it's like just bright, well lit, and just, yeah.
What about like just being with family? Because a lot of times holidays are so
Do you ever look at your
stressful.
Your mom and you're like, God, I need to go and lose some money.
No, I mean, it was luckily this trip was like the least stressful. But I think what helped is, so like my parents converted like our garage, because in California you can have like multiple properties on your property. So they converted the garage into like a whole like living space.
Yeah.
So it's like a 1 bedroom, 1 bath. So like being able to like separate, be together, but then like, okay, we're gonna go into they called it ADU, we called it the condo. But I was like, all right, we're gonna go and just put Ricky down. Even if we didn't have to, it was just like, all right, I'm just
What
gonna.
do you mean you can have multiple properties on your property?
So like our neighbors have the main house, but they have 2 other houses on their property, like
And they just share an address?
like
So they only
A, B,
have to pay
C.
taxes for one house?
Right.
Oh,
Because you just pay for the land, you're not paying for the houses.
huh.
And so like, so ours house 3092. So then it'd
Can
be
we
like,
not do that in North Dakota?
I don't think so.
Oh,
Or you don't have a big enough like lot to be able to do that. Like our lot can easily sit 3 houses. Like it's that large or that long. Yeah, it's crazy. It's probably, my dad has told me, but I think it's like a football field, give or take.
Are you guys rich?
No,
I'm just kidding.
but it's just in Altadena. Like there's just that much
you
like
have a
land.
football field for a yard?
Just about.
That's pretty cool.
Like when you
It's
think of like from the
more
front.
houses than 2.
Oh, maybe it's not that long. Maybe it's like half.
It's like a city block, actually.
Yeah, but it's like it's crazy. Like it's like from the street all the way to the back. It's nuts. Because we have a front yard, main house, garage, and we could easily put another house on it in the back of that.
I'm just, where are your valuables in the house, so just in case I make it to California?
Yeah.
No. Do you go to meetings and stuff over holidays? And because everything
city?
gets stirred up.
What city is this?
My parents live in Altadena, but I usually go to meetings in Pasadena. That's kinda like,
Pasadena?
See anybody famous? Is that not where famous
That's
people
why
are?
you're a 49ers fan.
yeah, I'm a Chiefs fan. It's weird.
I've seen you wear 49ers stuff before.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm not like diehard where
Right.
like I won't not wear any other team.
Chiefs.
Yeah, it's all red. It works with the outfit.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
He
If it goes with the
he
shoes.
just recently became a Chiefs fan. But wonder why.
That's funny.
What did
Yeah.
you guys do?
We had a blast. My family ended up stuck here for a little bit longer because of the ice storm thing.
That was crazy.
It was weird.
Yeah.
There's people skating down the street.
That's ridiculous.
Like
I saw a
ice
bunch of
skates.
snaps
Yeah.
of people like, oh, I'm glad we're here. But it was nuts.
It was crazy.
And my husband stepped outside. The first step he took, on his ass.
Oh, no.
I know. And he's broken his coccyx before, and that's not what you think it is. But he
What do I think it is?
he broke his coccyx, the tailbone. But a lot of people think like, coccyx. But anyway,
Don't think anyone thought that.
oh, I do. I always
thought
think
that.
that. I always think that. So anyway,
So he broke his tailbone?
yeah, years ago, and it still hurts.
Oh, geez, that sucks.
So anyway, but he was okay. And I'm like, how's your coccyx? And he's like, it's my neck. I'm like, oh no. Anyway, whatever. So that's how icy it was. It just takes you by surprise. But we
I
had a
parked
blast.
My car in my driveway, and it's slanted.
Oh my gosh.
And I got out of the car, and I started walking into the house. And then I turn around.
Did you fall?
No, I turned around, my car sliding out of the driveway.
Jeez.
And I ran, dude, I felt like such a badass. I ran, opened up the car, jumped in it, started up, all while it's sliding into, I mean, it wouldn't have, nothing would happen. It would just slid into the street, and I'm not on a busy street.
Right.
But it still felt like,
Yeah, that's awesome.
you know, because you've seen like, you know, videos of stuff like that, and it's like always ends badly.
They get run over by their own
Yeah.
car, yeah.
Right. Action hero Adam. Somebody's
That's
trying.
my
Did anybody see that? Did anybody see that?
That's gotta be on the nest.
How was everything else filmed and not this?
Or the camera angle's just out of corner. You see the car roll,
It
but you
did
don't
not
see
get
Adam.
recorded.
Oh,
Bummer.
that makes sense. Because I'm sure we would have seen it on Facebook. It would have been,
Oh, for sure.
like, it would have been TikTok. It would have been on everywhere.
I was like, I know you guys think I'm amazing, but check this out. Legend.
Was that your stunt double?
Yeah,
No, that's
Brad
good.
Pitt.
No, we had a lot of fun. What'd you do?
For the holidays? Well, I took a week off from work. It was more like a staycation. So I spent
Oh, I
a little
love
bit of time
those.
with the kids. I did not go home because of the ice storm.
Yeah.
I think I probably could have made it there and back, but it was too much to like be like, I'm taking the kids.
Yeah.
You know. So not much.
Yeah.
I'm not really a holidays guy.
Why do you say that? I just wondered, like, if it's something from before, or if it's just you just don't like the stuff,
You
or
know, when I was in a halfway house, Kirsten was a counselor there. Not mine, but she was a counselor there. And ever since then. Why do you feel that way?
shut up. I do that to my boys too, and they're like, "I'm fine." I'm like, okay, geez.
I don't know. I think, I don't know, mom and dad split up pretty
Yeah.
early or whatever. So it was all, I don't know. It's just, my family never really got into holidays.
Yeah.
So. I mean, my extended family did, and I go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, but that's about it.
Oh. So you didn't get the fun 2 Christmases or Christmas.
Go home,
Day?
go home. No, I only got, my dad wasn't around, Ricky.
Oh yeah. Wah, wah. Woo. Anyway, but a
Yeah,
lot
all
of
these divorced kids were like, yeah, I get 2 Christmases. I was like, I still only get 1.
well, I mean, yeah. But a lot of people in recovery feel that way about holidays, and it gets super weird, or they're around family and they're like, it was so stressful. My parents stressed me out, so that's why, I relapsed, or I made this bad choice or whatever. But I think the suggestion I was always given at holidays is like, just help somebody. Just ask a relative, can I get you something? Or the simplest thing, but get out of your own head. That self-obsession just turns into self-pity, and then it's like, they don't understand me. I should have some eggnog.
Yeah. I think for me, it's probably, since you asked,
Yes.
Counselor Kirsten,
Yes.
I'm so used to being around tons of people, whether it's staff or, events, network, whatever. And then and then I'm not, it's a small group of people. I love my family to death. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm just so used to being on the grind and on the move that like when sometimes I feel like if I'm just sitting there doing nothing, I'm like doing nothing.
Right.
And I get a ton of anxiety from it.
Why am I not busy?
Yeah. So then I just kind of, and then it escalates, and then I'm like snappy
Yeah.
and whatever. So it's just, by day 3 or whatever, people are like, just go back to work. They're like, it's
Please,
it's
don't
Christmas Day. It's like, it's okay.
Yeah. You're not wrecking anything. Yeah. I know. It's hard to be where your hands are.
Yeah, I'm trying. What's something new that I'm doing since New Year's? I started praying again.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I've always done like a walking pray or like a conversation or
Sure.
dialogue, but I've recently started getting on my knees again and praying, and it's been pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It's just, I think I went a really long time without it, because when I got sober, I was like, I think Kirsten knows this, prior to getting sober, I was very religious, like an asshole religious, like telling people they were going to hell on Facebook, and yeah, just super punitive,
a little much, but
very Calvinistic, sovereignty of like you're going to hell, And then when after I like hit another bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't get sober because of that. It was just like a moment of clarity, and I was just like, I have nothing.
Yeah.
But I've never had anything. Like even in the times that I would get sober, I would drink again, and then I would lose whatever I had. So I've never really viewed it as like recovery as much as it's like renewing. You know, because it was like I lived my life a certain way, even when I was a teenager, you know, up until I was 32. And so when I started like so anyways, the reason I'm bringing this up is that the day that I got sober, I was like, spiritual stuff has always been very interesting for me. I always go to like one extreme or the other. And so I decided like that day, I was like, well, I'm done, you know, trying to, you know, manipulate or figure out who you are. And I'm just gonna get busy with life, and I'm gonna try to help as many people, because I think that's what you want me to do. So I'm gonna do that until some burning bush comes and tells me to stop doing it. Because prior it used to be, I want a burning bush to tell me what to do.
Right.
So then I just kind of, you know, turned that over and was just like, I'm just gonna do this, and then if you don't want me to do it,
Right.
tell me.
Correct.
Because that would probably be more, like if I started going down the wrong path, he would be like, whoa.
Burning
you know?
bush, burning bush.
And so I don't know. Part of that was that I you know, because whenever I would pray, it would always turn selfish, or it always turn into, you know, pictures of who I think God looks like, or you know what I mean. So it was like I just didn't feel like that was a good use of my, you know, time with him. So instead I was just like, I'm just going to go down this path, and then if you make yourself present, or, you know, tell me to do something else or whatever, I'm just going to keep doing this until then. And so for 10 years, I didn't really ever pray. You know, I know there's probably people in recovery circles that are like, oh my God, it's in the steps, you know? But it's meant to be suggestive, number one.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's journey is really interesting and different. And mine just happened to be that I didn't start getting on my knees until I was 10 years sober. And I felt compelled to, like I was being, not like in an authoritative way, but more of a, like, I'm done. I'm done trying to just wrestle, you know, this life. And I'm...
Like you had to figure it out before things could get right or something.
Yeah, I think that I think on my own, that's the best I can do is 10 years. And so now I need a little bit of help, or whatever, mentally and spiritually and, you know, financially, whatever.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, invited him back in, and got all emotional, got teary-eyed.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm going to do this every day. And then I didn't do it for 4 more days.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, burst of reform. I do that.
But that's the big change for me, was that I've decided to get more in depth with my spiritual life.
Well, I think it's funny that you had mentioned just being more in depth, because I think that's, at least for my, just in journey and just how I was raised, like prayer was such a significant kind of portion of things. Like you have to, like, I mean, grew up Pentecostal, like everything was prayer, speaking in tongues, you know, all of that. And so when I first got clean, it was just a weird, like, pride thing, because it was like, okay, we're supposed to believe in this higher power and all of that, but then it was just some, like, all of the, like, the treatment and the different things are like, it was like, I could make this be religious, I could make this feel this way, or I can just take it for what it is. And so I would kind of, like, would oddly, like, go to church, but then I would try to, like, separate it. I'd be like, okay, well, this is church, and this is recovery. Even though it's in the steps and even anything else, it's like, well, this is 2 very different things. When I'm at church on Sunday, I'm praying. I'm not praying about, you know, my recovery or, like, Lord, help keep me clean or anything else. It's like I'm praying for people. It's like, all right, I'm praying for, like, please don't ruin my marriage. You know, all these things are, like, separated from, like, the recovery side of things. And so when I would pray, I would never pray about any of this. I would pray about everything else. And so it was, like, such a weird, like, probably after maybe a year and a half, then I was like, why am I separating these out to be, I'm going to pray over these things, and then these things I'm going to handle. Or these things my counselor's going to do, my therapist will talk to me about. Like, it's like, God, you don't have to handle these things because you put the people in my life. But here's this other stuff that I don't have anyone guiding me on how to be a good husband. I don't have anyone guiding me on how to, like, keep showing up to work when I hate my job. All these different things. It's like, all right, Lord, help me in these things. You don't have to worry about any of these. Like, it was a separation. Mm-hmm. And so then when I was like, this is dumb. I need to, like, why am I trying to keep him out of things? And be okay, well, let me just bring it back. Let me just pray over everything. All right, I'm going to pray over my recovery. I'm going to pray over my family. I'm going to pray over my job. I'm going to pray over just all the things and just kind of incorporate in all of it. Like, it wasn't like a aha, like, moment, but it was like, oh my gosh, everything started getting more clear. Everything started getting a lot better. Right? Yeah, I was just like, oh, okay. I should have been doing this a long time ago.
Want it to fit in a box, like it's supposed to be I was the one who came in and I was like, hell no. Am I going to, like, they said the word God, I'm out. This is gross. And I don't know why I was so just anti anything God. And it doesn't really matter because that was my excuse to not go back. And I've heard that numerous times. That like, well, it's religious, it's a God thing. And I think you just get to a place where, all right, I don't want to die, so I don't care what they're talking about. I just have to do something different. And I had heard once, like, if your dealer or the bartender was like, you're going to need to get on your knees and pray before I can give you your whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, it just... that would have been immediate because I would have done anything to have that result. Right. But I'm not willing to be uncomfortable in recovery. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not willing to do that stuff in recovery. And I'll tell you, I never did. When they said get on your knees to pray, I was like, I will never get on my effing knees again unless I'm married. And I get a new wardrobe. But anyway, I was just like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. And I never have. And I've always, when I read the big book, I change it from spiritual experience because that made it sound like I have to wait for a burning bush. There has to be some big thing happen or I'm not going to get it. But just spiritual experience was like a very long lesson in, it's just a change of attitude. I'd always change it from spiritual experience to change of attitude, and then I can work through the whole thing. But otherwise, I'm waiting for like the magic bullet. Many times in recovery, you wait for like the thing that's going to fix everything. You know what I mean? It's not there. It's not coming. And it's interesting that you mentioned religion because when you said the topic was pride, I quick Googled the word pride, and it was like, holy crazy train. It was instantly religious. And the first thing I saw was...
See Kirsten.
The first thing
crazy train.
I have arrived. I am in the station. Was the thing that came up first was God hates pride. And I was like, oh, this is so frightening. Like, why can't you just, like work with that stuff? And because it's a human feeling, Right. Anyway, so that freaked me out. And I was like, I'll just go with what I think. Because that's got to be right.
It was pride for a lot of that. Like, even in the last 10 years or even, it was pride, just spiritual pride too. Because it's so weird with like converts, like people who convert to Christianity without real mentorship. They just are kind of like extreme. If left unattended, they could become extremists, and they become, it's like that anywhere though. Like new guys in prison, like they're the ones causing most of the trouble. Right. And I didn't have like the good mentorship, and I just like all of a sudden I was like, looking at all the reasons people go to hell, and I need to like point them out. And then I would have my own.
I need to point them out.
Yeah, I have I don't know if you know this. Leviticus.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm a New Testament Christian. I'm like, ah, or like the Pentecostals, or you know, I went to like a Pentecostal like camp, and I was like brought up in like a very Calvinistic, word.
What does that
God.
mean,
It just-
Calvinistic? I don't know what that means.
John, oh man, we're gonna go.
I mean,
deep.
let's stick
You
with
know,
pride.
I'm not
yeah.
going to do this,
Yeah.
systematically, but like John Calvin had this theology of, the total depravity. The tulip is what it was called. It was the 5 points of Calvinism, and basically the thing that was really hard for people is that John Calvin said that people were predestined to go to hell. Right. That God had created people just to send them to hell, right? And there's a whole theology behind it, and it would take days and days to like explain it. But,
Okay, cool.
So we're not going to get into it, but he doesn't believe in the spiritual gifts. He didn't believe, Pentecostals, they believe in speaking in tongues and healing and interpretation and visions and all that stuff. And so there's just always been this kind of hostility between different religious groups. So anyways, I'm that other guy, and I'm in this Pentecostal church, and someone just gets up and just starts, like, I don't know what he was speaking in tongues is what he was saying, and it was just like crazy. Like he just right in the middle of a church service, pastor's up there preaching, and all of a sudden this guy gets up. He's like, and I was just like, damn,
Security.
and so then this guy's like, he's like, do we have an interpretation? And then someone gets up and interprets it, and I was like, what? I was like, bullshit, man. This is crazy, bro. I feel like I just went to like a theater.
Yeah, this is a good show. Good show.
So then this other guy gets up and he's like, he starts speaking in tongues, and then he tells everybody to get up, but he told us to get up in English. And so then everyone gets up, and then he starts speaking in tongues, and then he yells the word loose, and everyone fell down to the ground. I'm talking like 60 people fell down to the ground. I'm the only one still standing. And I turn and I look, I see everyone fell down to the ground, and I'm like, shit, I'm new here. And I get down on the ground, and then he had everyone like come up to the front, and he started like speaking over them, tongues over them, and then he was telling them what their spiritual gift was. And he comes over, and then as soon as he told them, he'd tap them on the forehead, and they fall over. Right? And I was like, okay, now I have a warning, because I'm like 3/4 into the line. And so then as he's coming to me, going one by one, I'm like, my pride's starting to build up. And I was like, you know what? When he touches my forehead, I'm going to push forward. And so he comes over to me, and he's like speaking in tongues, and he's like, your spiritual gift is music. And I was like, what? What a trap. I wanted like tongues or visions or something. And then
Try again.
So I was mad. He pushes me on the forehead, and I'm like, no.
It will not be music.
And then he had like his like number 2. He was like, you're supposed to fall down. And I was like, oh, sorry. And then I just like,
just slumped over.
So I was just like, I just got like, and it was, I'll tell you the one thing about Pentecostals that I really love. They are so passionate about their faith. Like I have a supreme jealousy for how dedicated they can be for it. Because that moment that I went through is like that every time I think about religion. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to be in a moment of someone yelling loose and speaking in tongues for me to get like prideful and bitter. And I'm like that all the time, So I have not gone back to church since then. And I know not all churches are that way, but I just, I get too prideful. I start thinking that the guy's teaching something wrong, or he's taking it out of context, or, what are they trying to get out of me, or whatever. And then after I started F5, and then we started like building some momentum in the community, and people then it just kind of was weird, because I'd go to church and then people know who I was and stuff. And I was like, I just want to go. This is why I really enjoy going to recovery meetings, because there's smaller meetings where
Yeah.
nobody knows who I am.
Yeah.
And I can just go sit, read in
Yeah.
the book, share, help a new guy, you know, and then it's done. It's not a big, you know, oh my God,
Yeah.
you're here.
Right.
I'm like, I know.
You're real. Like,
I'm me. I get it.
So I don't know. I got a love-hate relationship with churches and religion. I think Jesus was like a badass.
Yeah, I think it was a
He
cool
was
dude.
like the greatest criminal justice reformer of all time. Like didn't give a shit what anyone thought. He protected prostitutes. You know, like
Word.
I wasn't looking at you when I said.
Listen, I should have been paid. Anyway, keep
you know,
going.
talk
Yeah,
shit to priests and tax collectors, and he just treated everybody the same. He was just like, "You're all a bunch of sinners."
And that's the message, right?
Yeah.
Just don't be a dick. And I don't care what people
I don't
believe.
think that was the message, but
It is though. Just don't be a dick. That's the only rule in my house. I'm like, boys, the only rule is don't be a dick. I don't care if that means don't
Jesus
interrupt
said
your
so.
Jesus
teacher.
said, don't be a dick.
Yeah. And so did I. So write a book on me. But they had, but that pride though is so, even in recovery, can be so toxic and so isolating. And if the answer to, being sober is connection, pride is the thing that gets in the way. And I can't tell you the number of people that I've met with throughout my 20 years of doing this that understand addiction, like they intellectually understand it, they feel like they know what to do, but they are too proud to walk through that door. You know what I mean? And you have to be willing to be uncomfortable, and it just kills you. It's just trading. I'm willing to be miserable and continue on this path. I'm more willing to do that than I am to be a part of something that I just don't know about. And I think, negative pride is based in fear, and it's good to have pride, to be proud. Like I'm proud of being a mom, and I'm proud of all these things. But I think there's a humility that comes with that. And the positive pride is based in hope, because it's just like, I'm proud of this, but I'm going to help the next guy get to where I am so they can be proud too, It's not judgmental and hateful and whatever, It's not punishing, which it should, it shouldn't be anyway. But anyway.
Yeah, I want to tackle that, but I want to thank our sponsors.
Rawr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
GoAwayBear.com, the F5 Project, and the Ridge Treatment and Reentry Center. I want to thank them for sponsoring our podcast. It's just awesome that they believe in this and that believe in the vision that we get to do this. But so, Kirsten, you had mentioned about like this negative pride and positive pride. So for this next section, I want to kind of talk about like, can pride be a good thing in recovery? Does it have to be?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
It's hilarious when you first get sober and you're like, I went to work all 5 days this week and people are crying and applauding, the average guy's like, yeah, way to go, idiot, but it's good to be proud of that stuff. I think that when it gets toxic is when it keeps you from connecting with people because you know better, or you're entitled, you're whatever.
Yeah.
And you look like a douchebag, truthfully, but when you're always better than everybody, but that negative pride is so ingrained in, culture, really, like, well, don't be boastful, don't be this or whatever, which is silly because when someone asks, what are you good at? You're like, well, I don't know, not really anything. Like, well, then I don't want to hire you. I mean, it's stuff like that, where you have to have some pride in who you are. Otherwise, I think women, especially women, come into recovery with almost a lack of pride. And it is like where they don't believe in themselves. They don't even know, like, what do you like to do? I don't even know. I don't even know what I like to do. I don't know what I'm good at. They're either lost in, you kind of lose your identity as a person when you become a mom and you lose it, you know what I mean? And that leads to a lot of depression and anxiety and low self-esteem. And it seems as though, and this is just my perception, it seems as though men struggle with negative pride more so than women. I think that's like that machismo, you know, I can't take suggestions or whatever. But so there's two very different ways that it can be negative. And a lot of times it's working with women to help them find find something that you love about you and just start there, you know, be your best advocate or whatever, you know, so. Did I diss you guys with the pride?
No, it's good.
Call this machismo.
It sounds like chips.
I think that negative pride is, I think it's two-part. I think one, it's your ego trying to survive.
Sure.
Keep appearances up
Yep.
most of the time. And I also think it's directly linked to some kind of pain and trauma,
Okay.
right? So, most survival tactics are.
Sure.
Right? It's, starving your ego it's thirsty, right? It's hungry. It wants to be served. And
We want to have worth, yeah.
yeah, and it wants, there's dopamine comes in many
for sure.
fashions. It comes when I'm right, I get a shot of dopamine.
Yeah.
When I get the glory for something, or I get the limelight, or whatever. Like people recognize me. There's little shots of dopamine that happen with that. So then when your ego gets used to it, I think the ego and pride are directly connected. So
Sure. Yep.
when you get used to that, or you get used to that dopamine, right? Especially when you don't get the dopamine anymore from alcohol, drugs, gambling, whatever, your ego will find little shots of it somewhere. And I think it's trying to survive. And when people, get on you, or they hold you accountable, or they correct you, or, whatever it is, it's your ego is hurt, and pride kicks in, and then you're just surviving. So that's what maybe I'm just speaking from experience.
Sure,
I don't like, not being in control, and I think it's a mechanism from, my ego, my pride, my trauma, all that stuff. So, because when I feel like I'm not in control, or things go a different direction than when I intended, it's really nice to say, well, when God shuts a door, he opens a window, or whatever. But did he?
Right.
Maybe you just suck.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Right. I don't think that it's 100% ego. And, obviously, I think some people don't really understand, even in recovery circles, we've been inappropriately taught what the ego is, right? Like the ego is actually is the center, right?
Sure.
And then you have the super ego and you have the id. And the id is actually what I think people are referring to as the ego. It's the adolescent brain, dopamine, self-serving, and then the super ego is that, high legalistic morals and telling you that, you're wasting your life. And, so it's just this constant battle within. Right. And then your ego is actually the center that's like the negotiator or the mediator between the two. And so, when something threatens the id or whatever, and it's usually the superego that's threatening it,
Right.
It's, somebody's like, you watch too much Netflix and you should be studying or whatever. Your superego's like, yeah, of course, and then it's just this war that happens within, and then it hurts and it doesn't feel good, and then your id is like serving, like needs something to make it feel better.
Right.
And so I think that war is the pride and ego and the trauma, and because there's things that it triggers thoughts and stuff, like when someone tries to dominate a conversation that I'm having with them or whatever, it's very similar to being locked up, right? Or someone walks by, like some, like Scott, like some dad who walks by that has their keys on the outside of their pocket, you know what I mean? And then their cell phone on the outside of their pants or something. Like it's just it triggers thoughts. Like you don't even have to think about it. It just happens. Right. So there's just a lot that goes into it. And so when I see someone who's prideful or negative or whatever, it's usually a good indicator that they're hurting.
Yeah.
And so it makes it a little bit easier to when we say we, accept people as they are, like, do we really?
Yep.
Or do we accept people because we're going to change them?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or are we accepting someone because of who they're going to be in the
Right.
future?
Right.
Is it okay for them to be them right now?
Yeah, and in reality, it's like we're all going to die.
Yeah, for
You
real.
know what I mean? Like,
know.
we're all going to die one day, and and most of the friends that we have today are seasonal. And so, we can sit here and bent out of shape about the way that people are treating us, or realize that in 20 years, I'm probably not even going to know this person.
Right.
I'm probably not even going to know him in 3.
Yeah.
I think in the last 20 years, there's probably, in my circle, there's probably 2 or 3 people that are the same as they were 20 years ago.
Sure.
Prior to that, there's none, other than my family. My family's the only constant.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm going to let this short-term emotional, feeling dictate some long-term consequence.
Right.
Or just accept them as the way they are. It's none of your business.
Yep.
And I think recovery teaches you a lot how to healthy recovery teaches you how to not take stuff personal and not just assume I know what you're thinking.
Right.
And that just turns into this whole hypersensitivity. And anything you say, even in passing, not even to me, is a slight to me somehow. You know what I mean? It just becomes so toxic that the only way to make that pressure stop is to do something use, or like you said, a dopamine fix, whatever the next obsession is, So it just gets in the way so much. And anything someone does has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with them and their past experiences. And because I could be anybody at the moment, I just happen to be the one they're yelling at. And all of a sudden I'm like, what is wrong with me? You know what I mean? Nothing, absolutely nothing is wrong with me.
Right.
And I always say, if I came home and my husband was getting it on with Double D Debbie, I would be like, it really has nothing to do with me and everything to do with whatever he's lacking or whatever his whatever. I'm still going to burn all his shit. But that has nothing to do with him. That has everything to do with me feeling better. But it really is not that
Over a fire
sensitive.
with gas. I'm accepting you as you are.
I will just wait to be arrested. I'll be like, click, I'll stay here. But it's nothing personal. Those things are just people unhealthy, because there's a difference between responding to something and reacting. If you react, that's based on all of your experiences in the past. If someone says something to you that pushes a button, you're like, what the heck does that mean?
Right.
Are you saying this? And they're like, I have no idea why are you all like this? But recovery teaches you how to respond, which is like an emotionally mature reaction where you can just take the information, do with it whatever, and move on, But pride
that's the
keeps so many
goal.
people. That's the goal. That's still my goal.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I make a lot of amends too, so yeah.
So for people who aren't in recovery, hopefully they're watching, what are some tools that you've found, because we know pride exists for all the different things to make sure that you're, in life. What are some tools that you have found that have helped you manage that pride or manage that ego to make sure that you're just living and becoming a better human or a better dad or a better mom or a better brother or coworker, whatever, right? Do you have any other tools that?
I don't think there's a magic bullet. I think it's time and experience. It's
Sure.
just you beat your head with a hammer enough times, eventually you're going to be like, this is probably not good.
You have to be willing to hear people say things that are like, well, maybe you should work on this, instead of firing back like, well, maybe I should. You know what I'm saying?
Pull out the resume. How dare you?
Yeah.
Tell me to correct something. You need to correct these 5 things.
Right.
Yeah. I really do think it's just time and maturity and experience. The thing, at 42, there's things that I don't get upset about today that I probably would have gotten upset about 10 years ago.
Okay.
You know, like, I used to get really bent out of shape when people overtalk me. You know, now it's just like, all right, obviously they have something to say. You know, I don't have to be, like, I have different solutions to that. Like, I'm just going to hurry this meeting up, you know, or whatever. I used to fight and be really opinionated about the stupidest stuff. Probably still am on some, you know, whatever. But I think as I get older, it's just, I got better things to do.
Sure.
I think is what it is really. There's no, I think early on when I was like working on it, the more I worked on it, I feel like the worse it got. Because then I started having expectations.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd be like the worst one when you're like early in recovery is when you have like your bad behavior starts to show up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then people are like, did you get drunk or something? Like, did you relapse?
Sheesh.
And you're just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I can't, that's like the one thing people early in recovery lose their shit about is if someone believes that they relapse when they didn't relapse.
Right.
No.
They'll even get mad if they did relapse and be like, no, I didn't relapse. You know, like, but if they didn't, and they feel like that their life is like completely different than it used to be, and then people are like, you're really not that different. You're like, what the
Yeah.
Now I'm going to relapse because what's the use?
Facebook.
Yeah.
Adam is an
know.
asshole, you know. So, I don't know.
Which people have fair to ask because typically the last 30 years you have. You know what I'm saying? It's just like the odds are good in my favor.
But I'm not thinking that when somebody says that.
No, never. It was the most humbling moment of my life. When I had in the middle, around 12 or 15 years sober, I quit going to meetings, which was unhealthy, and it just tanked immediately. I mean, it was 2 years later I was suicidal. But anyway, and then I went back to a meeting I started, and I was the new person at a meeting I started, and I just was like, I have to swallow my pride and just go get to know people again, because they'd be like, hi, are you new? And I'm like, bitch, I made this place, you know what I mean? But you can't really say that because you're like, and I've let it go to hell for a few years. So it's
that just happened to me. I started going back to the BYOBB, and I was like one of the original people at the meeting, and that was probably, I don't know, 12 years ago. Because I relapsed after I helped start the meeting. And then went to it for a while after I got sober, and then I quit going around probably 3 years sober or something. Okay. And then, so now 10 years sober, I went back. They asked me to come speak at it. And so I'm sitting at this table, and this new guy comes up to me, and he was like, hi, I'm Bob. And I was like, hi, Bob. He's like, you new around here? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And he was like, welcome to the meeting. Here's a newcomer packet, you know, this and that. And I was like, and so then Fred comes up, and he was like, hey, yeah, I see you met Adam. He's like, yeah. He's like, he was the original GSR for this meeting. And I was like, oh, thank God.
I know, God, please, yeah. I'm not new.
That's so great.
Such stupid pride.
I know it is. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I've been sober for 10 years, Bob.
I know. Do you want the newcomer back? I mean, but I'm so happy that they're involved in doing something that I know enough to just shut my mouth and be grateful, you know. But inside, you're just like, oh,
that was a thought that I had. I was like, it's super cool that he's doing it.
Yeah.
Like, he's walking up to someone he doesn't know, making him feel comfortable.
This is working.
This is what, like, because you know, I know why he's doing it. His sponsor probably told him, he's like, if there's someone new at the meeting, you got to talk to him. Yeah. You get him a newcomer packet and a big book, you know, all this stuff. And so he's just running around like, because I remember when I was like new, and my sponsor would be like, you need to shake everyone's hand at the meeting. You need to set up a coffee date with a guy at the meeting and call 3 people on the phone list every day. Right? And so I'd just like walk up to a guy and be like, hey.
I know this is really weird, but.
Are you new here?
New around here?
Yeah. He's like, yeah, this is the first time at the meeting. I'd be like, yeah, cool. Well, nice to see you. And then you walk away, and your sponsor would be like, so did you talk to? Yeah, I talked to that guy over there. What'd you guys talk about? He's new.
That's as far as I got.
Go make him feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's the trick, right?
Or you get the
sit
shit
with
jobs.
them.
Or
Yeah,
whatever.
oh, yeah,
Like I was
yeah.
the vacuumer. I think we talked about this before. But we were at the Tupperware building, and it's like all carpet. And so they're like, you gotta, and there's like one vacuum. And there's, at the time, there's like, I mean, it's just like church, right?
Yeah.
There's like probably, I don't know, at that time, it felt like there was probably a couple hundred people going to this meeting.
Yeah.
And then I'm walking around trying to vacuum, and they're all doing Norwegian goodbyes. And it's just like,
Yes.
as soon as they're just like 200 people in this room, and I'm just trying to vacuum with a tiny ass vacuum, this very large building.
Right.
And so like right when I'll like go to the places, like I'm spot checking,
Yeah.
you know, because there's people in like groups. And so then it's like, now it's to the time where it's like, I'm starting to get resentful.
Yes.
Like, there's
hate
nothing.
you.
If you want to work, like I've heard people
Standing
like,
here.
God, I need to work on my pride, my acceptance, and I need my patience. And He doesn't just give it to you.
Yep.
He gives you opportunities to work
to
on
work
it.
on
Right.
it. Yeah.
If you want to, if you want God to have you work on something, it should be the vacuuming job at an AA meeting, because they do not give a shit if you're a vacuum.
Yeah.
So you just start walking around with this vacuum, and then you just like stare at them, and then you get closer, and then you just kind of
You have to bump
right
the
up,
shoes.
bump the shoe, and they're like, "Dude, bro," and I'm like, "I'm doing my job. You're just sitting around talking to people. Get a job, man." And they'd be like, "How long you been sober?" That's irrelevant.
Yeah, I know. I'm more useful than you are. Oh, I
Must be
know.
nice being 10 years sober, not doing shit.
That guy's just standing there at me. He's doing it at me. Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Early recovery was fun.
Yeah.
It is. It's it is a yeah.
Balancing act.
It's a balance for sure.
I think that probably, like, you know, the cool thing about like meetings, groups, is that it's kind of like an incubator.
Yeah.
For you to like work on shit before you go out back into the real
Yes.
world.
Right.
You know,
Before you're bumping your boss's shoes, you're
Yeah.
like, move,
we're going to
jackass.
practice these principles in all of our affairs with our
Right.
prospective employers and family, with all this stuff, right? And then you go out into the world and you're like kind and
Yeah.
tolerant.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you get to the meeting and you're just like egotistical and prideful. And then your sponsor calls you out on it and he's like, you need to work on that. Go talk to that new guy.
Yeah.
You know, get a
yeah.
commitment, you know, set up coffee dates, call, you know, whatever. And then you're just like kind of 3 inches tall by the time you leave the meeting.
Yep.
But you feel better.
You do. It
For
felt
some
good to have.
God-given reason,
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
just talk shit to you, and you're like, "Oh, I feel amazing."
Because
Right.
you trust them and
Yeah.
they're in the same sinking ship you're in. And you're just like, yeah, it
Yeah.
works. I don't know.
Get a bucket and just start emptying out the water in this leaky ass ship.
What am I
All
supposed
these
to
other
do?
drunks.
Yeah, it is. You're together. And that's the connection.
Right.
Your ship is sinking. All of you. Nobody's paying bills. Everybody's hooking up. I mean, it's just a chaotic nightmare. But you've never felt so safe and secure
Right.
and trusting in your life. My mom was always surprised. She'd come to meetings, and then there's a break in the middle, and you know, we'd go outside or whatever because I smoked at the time, and my mom would say, "Are you going to leave your purse?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" I mean, I have never had more faith in. That's probably the only place I would just leave my purse sitting there, you know.
Right.
But there's honor among thieves, maybe. I don't know, but it's more. I don't know. It
It
just
kind of
feels.
reminds me. Have you ever watched Gangs of New York
Yes.
Yeah.
with the butcher, and he leaves his watch in the middle of town to
Right.
show that no one's going to mess with it? It's kind of the same
Same
thing.
thing.
It's just like you don't want to piss someone off at the meeting because you want to go back to the meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, well, I mean, I wasn't always that way. But
I mean, I'm
I went
going to
back
welcome
anyway.
you.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm not gonna not. I'm hide my money. I mean, I'm not dumb, but
Adam's here. I'm gonna take this with me. Yeah.
but it is. There's just like I don't know. It's a different connection.
Do you guys have like jokes? You know, like how we have our stereotypical jokes. I'll walk up to someone, they'll say something dumb at the meeting, and be like, "Sober up, bro."
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's just a kind of a funny, whatever
Yeah.
play on words. Do you guys ever be like, don't bet on that, or
Yeah, we have a lot of just random
like gambling jokes,
just that they just randomly come up and just phrases and things.
and
So
no
it's
one's like, "Oh, Ricky's on his way to relapse."
Trigger!
no,
Okay.
yeah, everyone's
Yeah.
just like, oh, okay, and it's always funny. Like, yeah, you want to shuffle? One time I accidentally said, "Do you want to shuffle your pages to?" It's like, oh shit. Like, so I was talking about like to the
Yeah,
public,
yeah.
shuffle your pages to today's date, and then I looked around. No one caught it, so I was like, okay, thank God. But I just thought somehow just like, yeah,
You
just,
have
Oh
to
man,
do
I'd have
that.
such a heyday if I ever went to a GA meeting. Because I
throwing out
like
bombs, yeah.
I do
Yeah.
poker tournaments and stuff. Cheap ones like $20 or something. But I would just
You have to find humor in it though, or it will continue to
Yes.
just be hang over you because you have to be able to function in everyday life.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, "It's so serious. Why do you
Yeah.
make light of it?" Like,
but it
Well,
is. But
because-
when you're
yeah.
with all the people who we all struggle with the same thing, it's like we get it.
laugh at it or wallow in the drama. I mean,
I'd
it's
walk
just
up to the
stupid.
coffee person and be like, hit me.
Just leave the bottle.
I'll take care of this.
Use New Lima. Like, oh man, the 12 step is awesome. Bet.
But it's definitely. I mean, it's funny when you have a new person, and so you're doing we're all there just cracking jokes and
Yeah.
everything. I think that's one of the weird things is when I was new and just how comfortable everybody else was with everyone else. But it never changed because I was there. When I was still I had been to a few meetings so they knew I was they knew I was new, but no one ever changed who they were. They didn't stop the jokes. They didn't do anything for me.
No.
So if I was triggered, then they were like, well, that's on you, man.
coming back.
Yeah, exactly. It was
Yeah.
keep coming back. When it's but you guys crack jokes. Everything is happy
make
here,
peace
and
with
I'm
that.
this tall, and
Yeah.
they're no, yeah, this is literally who we are, and we're gonna just continue to be who we are. And so now when we have new people, it's still the same thing. Nothing ever is different.
Oh, it is so freeing. It
Yeah.
is so freeing. When I finally hung out with women that are now my girlfriends that would talk about the mortifying things I did in addiction, and they were laughing, and it was just I can make peace with this. In fact, I can make peace with this, and it can help me help other people.
Right.
And it became those worst moments that I thought were the worst, darkest moments have became my biggest asset. They're the darkest days have created the greatest life.
Yeah, I think all this is really proves that pride is seasonal. It's irrational. It's subjective, right? It's because even when I mentioned earlier, it's there's things I get prideful about today that I wouldn't have in the past, and there's things that I don't get prideful about that I'd used. It's just,
Right.
it's all irrelevant.
Right.
It's almost to the point where
Yeah.
pride is just is not needed at all, and it's just some trigger. It reminds me of. Have you ever heard that story about the Chinese farmer?
Mm-hmm.
Where he's got this Chinese farmer's got this acre of land or something like that, and he's got a horse and his couple kids, and he's tilling the land, and then all of a sudden the horse takes off, and the townspeople are Valley News Live shows up, and they're like, "This is
There's a
so
horse.
bad for you. This is horrible. Oh my God, what do you have to say? This is so bad." And he's just maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And they're like, "This guy is crazy. You don't have a horse anymore. You're not going to be able to till the land. It's all going to spoil. You're going to go hungry. This is so bad." And he's like, "Maybe it is, maybe it isn't." And then a couple days later, the horse comes back with a bunch of other wild horses. And he becomes the richest guy in the town. And then they come back and they're like, "This is so good for you. God loves you. You're going to be able to sell horses and buy more land. And your son's going to get an inheritance. And you're going to be taken care of your whatever." And they're like, "This is so good for you." And he's like, "Maybe it is, maybe it isn't." A couple days later go by. His oldest son is out trying to break the horses because they're all wild, and bucks him off and breaks his back. And they're like, "This is so bad for you." And he's like, "Maybe it is, maybe it isn't." And then a couple weeks go by, and the Red Army's coming through to take all of the firstborn sons to a war. And they overlook his son because he broke his back. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So it's like all those things he could have got prideful about, being rich, losing his horse, negative, all that stuff. And instead he is just like, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like that's I try to remember that.
Yeah.
That like when something confronts me or I lose something or I gain something, I think there was that Actors Guild, they had that podcast and Tom Hanks is like, I have to remember that this too shall pass.
Yeah.
Like even with sometimes we say that to ourselves when it comes to the negative stuff. But when the good things happen, a way to stay humble through it is to know that this too shall pass as well. And so pride's a bitch. And I wish I could be that Chinese farmer, and I aim to do it, kind of like what Kirsten said with Matt, maybe hooking up with some, random, woman in the house and she'll just burn his shit, but everything's okay. I wish I could be that way, and I'm scared. There's things in my life that I'm scared that if it does happen in that realm, I don't know how I'm going to respond.
Yeah.
And I want to, like, if anything ever happened to my daughter or any of my kids, and it was like a criminal act that happened to them, would I still be as passionate about reform?
Yeah.
Like I play out those hypotheticals. I'd like to believe that I will be,
Sure.
but I've also not been a victim of like losing a family member to a criminal act or something.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me.
Right.
But you have that as a goal. It's not like
it's a goal.
It's not like you walk around saying like, if this ever happened, I'd kill somebody. Blah, because that's just adds to the problem.
Yeah.
Whatever. But there was one quick story when my husband was so proud. He was working at the halfway house, and he worked the overnight shift, and when he got there, they said, this guy from your house and a girl from the girl's house are hooking up, so just make note of it if he disappears or whatever. And so Matt went and did bed checks, and sure enough, this guy's gone. So he's like, well, I'm gonna get this kid. He's like, I know exactly what he's thinking. I'm gonna just anyway. He was so proud that he was gonna find this kid. So he's got a flashlight and he's out and he's looking all over the property, and then he swings by this back seat of the car and he's like, oh, shit, I got him. And so he is like getting closer and closer to the car with this flashlight, and he's like, this prick is getting closer and closer to the window as I'm getting closer to the car. And he gets right in there, and then he's like, oh shit, it's me. So he was a little deflated. He was like, oh, I guess I'm not going to catch him. But he had a whole speech worked out and everything.
Oh,
Anyway,
Great.
old Maddie.
that's usually how pride works for me, too.
Well, I want to thank the F5 Project, the Ridge Treatment and Reentry Center, and of course, GoAwayBear.com for sponsoring our podcast. We're just super grateful. Thank you all for listening and for tuning in. Do you guys have anything you want to share before we get out of here?
Drop your pride.
Yep. Drop your pride. I like that. Kirsten, anything?
How many bears do people encounter, really, that they would need? Anyway, maybe it's more for dating.
I've seen bears.
You've seen a bear?
Yeah, I've seen a bear. I used to live out in Brainerd, and there's
Bears and Braves?
Oh, okay.
or when people go hunting,
Right.
there's
Yeah,
they
I
might
suppose,
encounter a bear.
yeah.
I mean, it's not only for bears. You can
Right.
probably have it as a protector, like when you're on the street or something. Someone like is
Predators.
Yeah,
Spray 'em.
Anyway,
Oh.
like brass knuckles.
I don't think you
yeah,
can
I
have
got those. I got those.
I don't think you can have those.
Oh,
I don't
those
got
illegal?
those.
Yeah, I think those
Well,
are
I
illegal.
definitely don't have them then.
They're considered a weapon.
I don't think they're illegal.
That's good.
Do you have to have a conceal and
Guys.
carry?
Is brass knuckles illegal?
State by state, probably.
State by state.
Oh, okay.
We'll go with the answer from Telwell.
Okay.
Check your local. Yeah.
Check with your local police
We asked them a
department.
question. They told us kind of good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. This was awesome. Drop the pride, y'all. You don't want to hit with your cookie crumbles before we get out of here?
No.
Okay. Well, have
New
a great
Year.
day and
And
recover,
that's how the
everyone.
kite flies. No?
This
how the
is
kite
not
flies?
rocket
Yeah, that's how
surgery.
the kite flies.